Reddit story time. Welcome back to the channel. They say sometimes the worst heartbreaks are not caused by fights or betrayal that shouts in your face. Sometimes heartbreak happens quietly on an ordinary afternoon when you are just trying to do something kind. Imagine bringing your fiancé lunch, his favorite food, his favorite smile ready on your lips, only to find that while you were planning a future, he was building something else with someone you were told not to worry about. Today's story is not about anger or confrontation. It is about the shattering sound of silent realization. It is about Olivia, a woman who trusted completely, who loved fully, and who found out in the simplest, cruelest way that trust is not always enough. This is not a story of shouting matches or dramatic exits. It is a story about how sometimes the strongest goodbye is the one said without words. Have you ever walked into a room full of truth, that it took your breath away? Have you ever realized that the love you believed in was already being shared with someone else? Tonight, we follow Olivia on a journey through shock, heartbreak, and the quiet strength it takes to leave. Stay with me, because sometimes it is not the confrontation that matters. It is the courage to close the door and never look back. Let's begin. Olivia and Nathan were the kind of couple that people envied. 5 years together. Laughter that filled rooms. Quiet mornings over shared coffee. Plans for a small house with a red door and a golden retriever in the yard. When Nathan proposed, it was simple, honest, just the two of them on the rooftop where they had first said, "I love you." Olivia said yes. Without doubt, without hesitation. She dove headfirst into wedding planning, picking flower arrangements, choosing invitations, dreaming about honeymoon destinations. It felt real. It felt permanent, until the small cracks started to show. Nathan working late, canceling dinner plans, saying he was swamped at the office. Olivia trusted him, because that is what love does. It believes even when logic whispers otherwise. She missed him, but she understood, or at least she told herself she did. Then came that Wednesday. She had a free afternoon, a rare break between meetings. She thought, why not surprise him? His favorite Thai place, pad Thai with extra peanuts. She even remembered to grab extra napkins riding up the elevator. Olivia felt light, happy. She pictured his face when he saw her, imagined the easy grin, the warm hug. She checked in with the front desk, got her visitor badge, walked down the hall. Claire was the first to see her. Claire, the co-worker Nathan always described as harmless, like a sister. Claire's face said, everything, too much surprise, too little welcome. Claire stammered something about Nathan being down the hall. Conference room 3. Olivia thanked her, smiled, walked slowly, one step after another, and through the narrow glass pane of the conference room she saw it. Nathan leaning over Claire, laughing too softly, touching her hand. A kind of intimacy, casual, practiced, not the awkward flirtation of something new, but the worn-in comfort of something old. Olivia stood frozen. In one hand, she held a bag of food meant for the man she thought she knew. In the other, she held the sharp, shattering truth. Nathan looked up, met her eyes, shock, guilt, panic. He rushed to the door. His words stumbled out. "Liv, it's not what you think." She smiled, a small smile, the kind you give when there are no words big enough to hold the ache. She handed him the food. Lunch, just one word, Then she turned, walked away, past the desks, past the curious stares, past the version of her life she had been so sure was waiting for her. That night, Olivia went home, packed a suitcase, took only what mattered. She left the engagement ring on the kitchen counter, a tiny circle of broken promises Nathan called texted apologies, explanations. But some things once seen cannot be unseen, and Olivia knew. Some love stories do not need a final argument, just a final walk away, and the courage to never turn back. Some betrayals are loud, explosive, and some are silent. They happen in the smallest moments, a hand on a shoulder, a look held too long, a smile meant for someone else. Olivia's story is not about screaming fights or dramatic confrontations. It is about something much quieter, much harder to forgive. The betrayal of everyday intimacy. When someone you love begins giving pieces of themselves to someone else, and you are the last to know. Nathan's biggest lie was not in his words. It was in his actions, in the way he made Olivia feel safe while building something dangerous behind her back. We are taught that trust is about believing. But trust, real trust, is not just about blind faith. It is about mutual responsibility. You protect the heart that is handed to you. You honor the belief someone places in your hands. Nathan failed her. Not because he was unhappy, not because he found someone else, but because he did not have the courage to end one chapter before beginning another. And Olivia, she chose something powerful, something rare. She chose silence over spectacle. She chose dignity over explanation. She did not demand apologies. She did not beg for understanding, because deep down she knew. Some things once broken cannot be pieced back together. And sometimes walking away quietly is louder than any scream ever could be. Olivia's strength was not in her leaving. It was in the way she refused to let someone else's betrayal rewrite the way she loved. She loved honestly, completely, fearlessly. And just because Nathan could not honor that, does not make her love foolish. It makes it rare. Real love, when given fully, is never wasted, even when it ends, even when it hurts. It becomes a reflection, not of what they did, but of who you are. And Olivia's story reminds us all that sometimes the strongest kind of love is the love you choose to keep for yourself after someone else forgets how to hold it. Now, let us take a moment to hear what the Reddit community had to say about Olivia's story. Because sometimes the most powerful reflections come not from shouting opinions, but from quiet echoes of people who have walked through the same kind of heartbreak. Our trust. Once, Broken wrote, "The worst betrayals are not in the lies you hear, but in the truths you see." 87K likes. This comment captures it perfectly. Olivia did not need to hear an excuse. She saw everything she needed to know with her own eyes. And sometimes that silent truth hurts more than any confession ever could. Whose silence says, it all wrote, "Walking away without shouting does not mean you are weak. It means you are strong enough to choose yourself over chaos." 2K likes. So powerful. Choosing peace. Choosing dignity. It takes more courage to leave quietly than to stay and demand answers that will only reopen the wounds. Hugh Golden Goodbye wrote, "You do not owe anyone a scene when they have already written you out of the story." 4K likes. Beautifully said. Olivia did not create drama. She simply refused to be a character in someone else's betrayal. And that is the definition of self-respect. Day. Quiet, Stay Strong wrote, "There is nothing louder than the silence of someone who chooses not to beg." 9.6 likes. This comment gave me chills because true strength is not in how loud you cry, but in how firmly you close the door and walk away without looking back. She deserved. Better wrote, "Loving fully is never wrong. Betraying that love is choosing yourself after heartbreak is the real victory." 10. 1K likes. Exactly. Olivia's love was not wasted. Her heart was never foolish. It is the betrayal that was weak, and her ability to move forward without bitterness is what makes her truly powerful. Reading these comments, one thing becomes clear. Heartbreak does not define you. The way you choose to heal, the way you choose to protect your heart moving forward, that is what shapes your strength. Have you ever walked away silently when someone expected you to stay and fight for something already broken? Tell me your story in the comments. Your voice matters here. I found my face on his wedding website. Reddit, love story time. Welcome back to the channel. They say closure is something you find for yourself, not something someone else gives you. But what happens when a piece of your past shows up in the middle of someone else's future? Tonight's story is about Rachel, a woman who thought she had moved on, thought she had closed the book, sealed the last chapter. Until one random evening, one simple scroll through social media, and suddenly she found herself staring not just at her memories, but at someone else's love story. A love story where she was never meant to be, part of the final pages. This is not a story of jealousy. It is not a story of sabotage. It is a story about how sometimes the past does not leave quietly. Sometimes it lingers. In photos you thought you deleted, in promises you thought you buried. And sometimes the people you loved move on faster in words than they do in heart. Have you ever thought you were done grieving someone, only to have an old memory rip open the parts you worked so hard to heal? Have you ever realized that? Letting go is not just about forgetting. It is about forgiving yourself for still feeling the sting. Stay with me as we walk through a story about goodbyes that never fully leave, about love that leaves footprints long after we thought we had wiped them away. Let's begin. Rachel met Mark when she least expected it. A mutual friend, a bonfire night. Laughter shared over cheap wine and whispered stories. What started as easy conversation turned into late-night calls, weekend road trips, and plans for a future that felt almost too perfect to question. For 3 years, they loved each other, clumsily, fiercely, honestly. Mark talked about settling down. Rachel dreamed about traveling the world. And somewhere between those two dreams, cracks began to form. They broke up with kindness. No slammed doors, no final accusations. Just two people standing in front of a future they realized they could not walk into together. They promised to stay friends, promised to be happy for each other. Someday, Rachel kept that promise. She moved on, threw herself into work, built a life that was hers alone. And when she thought of Mark, it was with a soft ache, not anger. Until that night, sitting on her couch, scrolling through Instagram, half paying attention to a show playing in the background. And there it was, a photo of Mark and a woman she did not recognize. The caption read, "She said yes, wedding in June, save the date." Rachel stared, not out of jealousy, but out of that strange, stunned feeling when someone you used to know becomes a stranger with a life you will never be part of again. Curious, she clicked the link to their wedding website. It loaded slowly. White background, gold lettering, smiling faces, Mark and Julia, standing on a beach, arms wrapped around each other, sunlight caught in their hair. Rachel smiled, bittersweet. It hurt. but it was also beautiful. She scrolled down, read their love story, how they met, how they knew, and then she saw it. Under a section titled Our Journey Together, a photo collage. Except not all the photos were new, some were old, familiar. Rachel's heart stopped, because there she was, smiling, laughing, her arms around Mark. Their road trip to New Mexico, their fall festival, the Christmas tree farm where he had pulled her into a kiss under twinkling lights. Memories that had once been sacred, now displayed on a page meant for a future she was never invited into. Rachel stared. For a long time she could have messaged him, could have demanded an explanation, but she didn't. Because the truth was, this was not about the photos. It was about what they represented. Mark had moved on in some ways, but he had carried their history into a place it no longer belonged. Rachel closed the page, turned off her phone, and sat quietly in the dim light of her living room, letting herself feel the complicated ache. Some goodbyes are not clean. Some chapters bleed into the next. And sometimes the only closure you get is realizing that you were brave enough to close the door yourself. Some heartbreaks do not scream when they arrive. They creep in quietly through photos left behind, through memories we thought we had locked away. Rachel's story is not about jealousy or bitterness. It is about the strange weight of realizing that while you have moved forward, pieces of your past are still being carried by someone else. And that realization is more painful than we often admit. Mark's mistake was not just forgetting to delete old photos. It was forgetting that memories are not harmless decorations. They are sacred. They carry weight. They deserve to be respected, especially when you are building a new life with someone new. We often talk about closure, like it is a moment, a conversation, a clean ending. But the truth is, closure rarely comes tied up neatly. Sometimes it comes when you are scrolling your phone on a random night and realize that you have outgrown the person who once held your whole heart. Rachel could have reached out, could have demanded her face be erased from a story she no longer belonged to. But she didn't, because she understood. Some battles are not worth fighting. Some answers are not worth chasing. And sometimes the greatest strength is choosing not to invite yourself back into a chapter that was already closed. Rachel's love was real. Her memories were real. But they belonged to a time that was no longer her home. Moving on does not mean forgetting. It means learning to live with the beautiful ache of what once was, without letting it hold you hostage. Rachel's story reminds us all that love is never a waste. Even when it ends, even when it leaves traces in places it shouldn't. Because real love, real memories are part of the architecture of who we become. And sometimes letting go, quietly, without anger, without regret, is the most courageous thing we will ever do. Now, let us take a moment to hear what the Reddit community had to say about Rachel's story. Because sometimes the deepest reflections are written not by the ones who lived the story, but by those who recognize a piece of their own heart inside it. Pages. Unwritten wrote, "The hardest part of healing is realizing that even the best memories can sting when they no longer belong to you." 8.9. Likes. This comment captures it perfectly. Healing is not just letting go of the bad. It is learning to live with the good memories without letting them keep you chained to a past that no longer exists. Moving. Without Maps wrote, "Sometimes closure is not a clean goodbye. Sometimes it is quietly closing a window that someone else left open." K. Likes. So true. Rachel did not need Mark to close the door for her. She found her own way to close it softly, finally, without asking permission. Our photographs. Fade wrote, "Old photos are not just images, they are echoes of who we were before the heartbreak." I eat likes. This comment hits so deep. Memories are not the enemy. They are reminders of who we loved, who we were, and how far we have come since. To stay quiet. Stay Free wrote, "Strength is scrolling past your own face and still wishing them well without letting yourself drown in what-ifs." 9. Likes. That is real strength. It is easy to get stuck in the loops of what could have been, but harder and braver to choose peace instead of regret. Braves. Enough to Heal wrote, "Letting go is not forgetting. Letting go is choosing to live even when a part of you remembers." 10. 2K likes beautifully said. Rachel's Kikatul story reminds us that remembering is not a weakness. It is simply proof that we loved deeply enough to leave a mark and strong enough to carry on anyway. Reading these comments, one thing is clear. Healing is not linear. It is messy, beautiful, complicated, and sometimes it is in the quiet moments when you choose not to reopen old doors that you find your truest strength. Have you ever stumbled across a memory you thought you had already buried? Share your story in the comments. Your experience might just be the light someone else needs tonight. I opened a birthday gift and realized it was never meant for me. Reddit story time, welcome back to the channel. Sometimes the end of a relationship feels clean, final, wrapped up neatly, like the closing chapter of a good book. But other times, it leaves behind tiny threads, little pieces of connection still dangling quietly, waiting to catch you by surprise. Today's story is about Laura, a woman who thought she had stitched up every wound, thought she had healed, thought she had finally moved forward, until the past showed up. Not through a late-night text, not through a chance encounter, but through a package left at her door, a package wrapped in bright paper tied with a ribbon, a package that held inside it not just a bracelet, but a painful reminder that sometimes we are closer to healing than we realize until life gives us one final test. Have you ever thought you had let go only to feel the ground shift again beneath your feet because of something small, something unexpected, something that was never even meant for you? This is not a story about anger. It is not about revenge. It is about dignity and the quiet power of choosing peace over closure, over explanations, over reopening wounds that are better left closed. Stay with me, because sometimes the most powerful goodbyes are the ones you never say out loud. Let's begin. Laura met Ethan during a summer internship. He was the guy who always had an extra charger, always knew the best coffee spots, always made people feel like they belonged. What started as borrowed pens and lunch breaks turned into long conversations about everything and nothing, and somewhere between September and December, they fell quietly, completely in love. For 3 years, Laura and Ethan built something they believed would last. Road trips to nowhere, grocery store adventures, late nights spent making each other laugh, until they forgot about the world outside. They had a rhythm, a language only they spoke, but sometimes even the strongest rhythms fall out of sync. Ethan wanted stability. Laura was chasing dreams that kept moving. They tried to hold on, tighter, longer, until holding on began to hurt more than letting go. Their breakup was not dramatic. No screaming, no slamming doors, just 2 people sitting on opposite ends of a couch. Realizing they wanted different things, they promised to heal, promised to move on. And Laura kept her promise. Slowly, painfully, she picked up the pieces of herself. She rebuilt her world without him. Found a new apartment. Started. Yoga adopted a cat named Oliver. She stopped checking his social media, stopped wondering what he was doing. Until her birthday, Laura had spent the day answering messages from friends, smiling at silly memes, blowing out candles at a quiet dinner. She felt good, whole until she got home and saw the package. A simple brown box, wrapped neatly, sitting on her doorstep. No return address, no sender name, just her name. Laura hesitated. Curiosity gnawed at her. Finally, she took it inside set. It, on the kitchen counter, opened it slowly. Inside, a delicate silver bracelet. Thin, elegant, with a tiny heart charm. For a second, Laura felt her chest tighten. Was this from Ethan? A gesture, a quiet apology, a memory sent back across the silence. She reached for the small tag tucked under the bracelet. Read the words, "To my beautiful Chloe. Happy birthday. I love you, Ethan." The world tilted. The gift was not for her. It was for someone else. Laura stood in her kitchen, bracelet dangling from her fingers, realizing that somewhere out there, Ethan had moved on, found a new rhythm, a new laughter, a new life, and she was just the wrong doorstep, the wrong memory, the past he had already outgrown. Laura did not cry. She did not rage. She quietly placed the bracelet back into the box, sealed it carefully, and the next morning she mailed it to the return address printed faintly on the shipping label. No note, no accusations, no messy explanations, because sometimes closure is not about demanding answers. It is about choosing to let go without needing a reason, without needing to be understood. Just because you know that your peace matters more than anything left unsaid. Some heartbreaks do not arrive with broken promises or harsh words. Some arrive quietly, wrapped in pretty paper, tied with the wrong name. Laura's story is not about betrayal or anger. It is about the strange ache of being reminded that someone you once loved has found new hands. To hold Ethan's mistake was not malicious, but sometimes it is the smallest oversights that hurt the most, because they show you not how much someone hates you, but how little they still think of you. Laura could have made it messy, could have called, could have demanded apologies, but she chose something different. She chose peace. She chose silence. In a world that teaches us to fight for attention, to demand explanations, choosing to walk away without a word is an act of radical strength. Some might say she should have yelled, should have made him remember. But Laura understood something deeper. Closure is not something you get from someone else. Closure is the quiet decision you make when you realize that your heart deserves to be protected, even if no one apologizes for breaking it. Real love leaves marks, but it also leaves lessons. And sometimes the greatest lesson is learning how to let go. Letting go without bitterness. Letting go without needing to be seen. Letting go because you finally understand that your peace, your future, is worth more than holding on to someone else's mistake. Laura's story reminds us all that healing is not always loud. Sometimes healing is choosing to pack up the past, seal it shut, and send it away without needing anyone else to understand why. Now, let us listen to the voices from the Reddit community. Because sometimes, in the words of strangers, we find reflections of our own pain, our own healing, and our own strength, silent. Strength wrote, "Walking away without demanding an apology is one of the hardest things you can do. It means you have finally chosen yourself." 9. On K likes. This comment speaks to the quiet courage Laura showed. Choosing yourself when the world tells you to fight for closure is one of the deepest acts of self-respect. Your Forgotten Gift wrote, "It is not the forgotten gift that hurts. It is realizing how easily you can be left behind in someone else's new life." 8. K likes so true. Sometimes it is not about the object. It is about realizing that while you were healing, someone else was moving forward without you. Oh, No Need for Closure wrote, "The real closure is not getting an apology. The real closure is realizing you no longer need one." And 7K likes. This is such a powerful truth. Laura's healing did not depend on Ethan's regret. It depended on her own decision to protect her peace and move forward. Stay. Kind Stay Strong wrote, "You can love someone with your whole heart and still understand when